What if a single moment on live television, something that lasted barely 5 seconds, completely changed the course of your life? That's exactly what Clay Aiken says happened to him. 20 years after one of the most talked about on-air exchanges in morning television history, the American Idol star is finally speaking his truth. And what he revealed, nobody saw coming. Welcome back to the channel. If you're into real celebrity stories, the ones that go far deeper than the headlines, you're in the right place. Today we're diving into a story that has quietly lived in the pop culture archives for two full decades. A story about a live TV moment, a superstar morning show host, a music icon, and a chain of events so dramatic, so personal, and so raw that the man at the center of it all is only now finding the words to describe it. We're talking about Clay Aiken, Kelly Ripa, and the incident from November 2006 that, according to Aiken himself, triggered what he calls probably the most catastrophic week of my life. To truly understand this story, you have to go back to 2003. Clay Aiken burst onto the national stage as a contestant on the second season of American Idol. A fresh-faced young man from North Carolina with an extraordinary voice and an underdog spirit that captivated tens of millions of viewers. He didn't win the competition. Ruben Studdard took home the title, but something remarkable happened. Clay Aiken became just as famous, if not more so. His debut album, Measure of a Man, sold over 2 million copies and shot to #1 on the Billboard charts. He was everywhere. Magazine covers, late-night appearances, arena tours. He was, by every measure, a pop culture phenomenon. At the same time, Kelly Ripa had firmly established herself as one of the most beloved faces in morning television. After her beloved run on All My Children, she stepped into the co-host chair on Live with Regis and Kelly alongside the legendary Regis Philbin, and the chemistry was undeniable. Kelly was quick-witted, warm, and had an energy that audiences adored. By 2006, the show was a ratings powerhouse, and Kelly Ripa was its beating heart. So when the opportunity arose for Clay Aiken to guest co-host alongside Kelly, filling in for Regis, it seemed like a perfect pairing. A beloved pop star stepping into the spotlight of morning television, testing the waters for what could have been his very own hosting opportunity. The stage was set. The cameras were rolling. And then it happened. It was November 20th, 2006. Clay Aiken and Kelly Ripa were interviewing the Dancing with the Stars champions, Emmett Smith and Cheryl Burke, live on air. The energy in the studio was light, fun, the kind of breezy morning TV that viewers tune in for over their coffee. But Clay felt like he wasn't getting a chance to speak. The cue cards had his name on them. The questions were meant to be shared. And in a split second, playful decision, he reached over and placed his hand over Kelly's mouth. A light-hearted attempt to pause the conversation so he could jump in. What followed was immediate. Kelly pulled back, clearly caught off guard, and with that signature quick wit, delivered a line that would echo across pop culture for the next 2 decades. "I don't know where that hand's been, honey." The audience laughed. The moment passed. Or so Clay thought. In his recent appearance on the Hollywood Raw podcast, airing June 24th, 2026, Clay described exactly what he was thinking in that instant. He said he was simply trying to be funny. He was there to prove he could handle a hosting role. He was enthusiastic, maybe a little eager. And the gesture? He insists it was completely innocent, just a playful way to get his turn at the mic. "I tried to be funny," he explained, and then it got a little cold in the room. Clay initially tried not to dwell on it. He thought it would blow over. But that wasn't the end of the story. The following week, when Regis Philbin returned to the show, Kelly addressed the incident on air at length. She was direct and firm. She said there had been a lack of respect, and that regardless of intent, you simply don't place your hand over someone's face during a live interview. It was a public rebuke, broadcast to millions of viewers across America. And for Clay, watching it unfold from the outside was deeply uncomfortable. But then, and this is where the story takes a turn that is both surprising and genuinely emotional, it escalated to a level nobody had anticipated. The View picked up the story, and co-host Rosie O'Donnell, in discussing the exchange, used the word homophobic to describe Kelly's "I don't know where that hand's been" remark, suggesting the comment was a veiled reference to Clay's sexuality. The comment landed like a thunderbolt. Here's the thing that makes this moment so significant and so personal for Clay Aiken. At the time, he had not publicly come out as gay. He was out to close friends and family. He was out to Rosie privately. But he was not out to the general public. He was not out to his grandparents. He was not yet ready. And in a matter of days, through a live on-air celebrity feud that had nothing to do with him at its core, that deeply private aspect of his life was suddenly being debated on national television. Kelly called into The View that very day to defend herself, firmly stating that her comment was about cold and flu season. Aiken had been shaking hands with the entire audience. The two women went back and forth, live on air, in an argument that centered entirely on Clay Aiken's sexuality, something he had not yet chosen to share with the world. "I was not out to my grandparents," Clay said quietly on the podcast. And not only does Rosie call it a homophobic remark, but then Kelly calls in live to The View and they get in an argument about whether I was gay. He paused. "Not only did she out me, they had a big argument about it." Fans immediately started reacting. Tabloids ran with it. The story refused to die. And Clay Aiken found himself at the center of a media storm that felt completely out of his control. Behind the scenes, though, something more human was unfolding. Clay's team found archival footage of Kelly herself placing her hand over Regis Philbin's mouth during a previous show and quietly circulated it, providing some context. Clay also did something that many people in his position might not have. He sent Kelly flowers, and she called him. According to Clay, Kelly apologized for the situation escalating the way it did. She told him it had gotten blown out of proportion. She even said she'd love to have him back on the show anytime. But when his team actually tried to arrange a return appearance, they were told it wasn't happening. "We tried," Clay said. "We were not allowed. So I just haven't tried since." In the years that followed, Clay and Kelly would occasionally find themselves at the same events, moving in the same celebrity circles. But they never spoke about what happened, never addressed it directly, just coexisted in the same industry, carrying different weights from the same moment. "Maybe I should feel bad that I have not gone up and said something myself," Clay acknowledged. "But she hasn't either. I'm the one with the scars." What makes Clay Aiken's story resonate so deeply, especially now in 2026, 2 full decades later, is not just the TV drama. It's the human story underneath it. Here was a young man at the height of his career, still privately navigating a deeply personal journey of identity, who found that journey suddenly and involuntarily thrust into the public conversation. Not on his terms, not in his words, not in his time. Clay came out publicly in 2008 on his own terms on the cover of People magazine, choosing to share that part of his story alongside the announcement that he had become a father. That moment of joy and authenticity was his. But the 2006 incident had already, in some ways, begun to write that chapter for him without his permission. And yet, reflecting on it now, Clay doesn't speak with bitterness. He speaks with clarity. He understands that Kelly's original remark, whether it was about hygiene, humor, or something else entirely, was not the thing that truly hurt him. What hurt was the uncontrolled, cascading spiral that followed. The loss of agency over his own story. The feeling of watching his private life become a public debate while he stood on the sidelines. "She had such a big voice at that time," he said softly on the podcast. That one sentence says so much. Today, both Clay Aiken and Kelly Ripa are in very different chapters of their lives. Clay, now 47, has continued to build a multifaceted career, from music to Broadway to a run for Congress in North Carolina in 2022. He's a father. He's an advocate. And by all accounts, he has carved out a life of meaning and authenticity on his own terms. Kelly Ripa, now 55, remains one of the most recognizable faces on morning television. Live with Kelly and Mark, co-hosted alongside her real-life husband, Mark Consuelos, continues to be a fixture of American morning entertainment culture. Kelly has always been celebrated for her candor, her humor, and her genuine connection with her audience. And sources close to her have noted that the 2006 incident, while long discussed by fans and media, is something she has long since moved past. As one source told Entertainment Weekly, this all happened 20 years ago, so it is rather silly to be a story. And yet, people are talking about it. Because stories about vulnerability, about identity, about the unexpected moments that shape us, never really get old. There's something quietly powerful about Clay Aiken finally telling this story in full. Not with rage, not with resentment, but with the kind of measured, honest reflection that only time and perspective can bring. A 5-second moment on a morning talk show cascaded into a week that touched on some of the most personal parts of who he was. And for 20 years, he carried it. Quietly, professionally, privately. Now he's chosen to speak. Not to reopen old wounds, but to close them on his own terms, in his own words, in his own time. And in that choice, there's something genuinely human. Something that reminds us that behind every headline, every trending moment, every viral clip, there's a real person. With real feelings. With a story that doesn't always fit neatly into a 30-second news cycle. Clay Aiken's story is one of resilience. And it deserves to be heard. So here's what I want to know. Drop it in the comments right now. Do you think Clay and Kelly will ever actually sit down and have a real conversation about what happened? Do you think 20 years is enough time for a moment like this to truly be water under the bridge? Let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this celebrity update, subscribe for more entertainment news and Hollywood stories. New videos every week, and we never skip the details that matter.